Okay, I'm scared. Like, here we go. You are a bigger than life person in life and in family and in business. And I have known you for a really long time, but it's been a long time since we've connected. So I'm really excited to catch up here in front of 1 million of our favorite people.
Well, suddenly I feel like shy because it's like all of a sudden I'm turning red and all of a sudden I'm live without anybody watching. So
you don't even get embarrassed.
Yeah, I do still get embarrassed. I'm naturally probably an introvert, but I've over the years found myself to be extroverted. Or I like social events, but only to a certain extent.
I feel like I'm more introverted as the years go on. What we do is exhausting. You have to talk to people all the time, and it's all about what they need, and that's beautiful. But it is a little tiring. We've been doing this a long time. You longer than me.
Yes.
How did you get into real estate?
Well, it's a good point. But before you ask me that question, I'd like to ask you a couple of questions.
Oh, gosh, here we go.
Because I was always, I knew you did this, but I didn't know to what extent. And I asked a few friends like Chris Simmons. Chris, you'd probably like to hear your name out there, Chris Simmons. Anyways.
Chris Simmons.
Anyways, why you do it, and then does it help your business? And I also like to ask, you recently sold your business and how that's going. You went to Colliers, and why'd you do that?
So it's a double question. I got this maybe. Is a lot. Right? Yeah. I love telling people stories, and I think people are so interesting. And it's probably my favorite part about what we get to do is we get to learn about all these businesses and what makes people tick. And then once we understand that, we can help achieve their goals. Right. So, I think, leveraging, this podcast, it's hard for me to go talk to people and try to say I'm really only here because I care about getting into your pocket. So this really fulfills me. It's probably more in line with what I want to do for the rest of my life, and that is to just really help people tell their stories, help inspire other people. It inspires me. It's just really incredible what people have done, the struggles that we go through, how we all look like we're the success from one way or another on the outside, and we're all just having these personal struggles on the inside. And, life is hard. It's stupid hard for, I don't know why. You've got a pretty good connection to God. Maybe you have better answers. But I think it's just a really wonderful way to get to know people in our industry. I'm incredibly honored that they take the time to share their stories, and I think they've inspired a lot of people. I've had people reach out that certain stories have really touched them and made people feel like they can do it, and so that just gives me great joy.
And then you ran a business, right? And you sold it, right?
Yeah, and I love marketing. So doing a podcast is really a fun way to kind of market my brand, and it was about my company, Christensen and Company, and just kind of decided that I had done everything I could do after 23 years, and knew that as I take on another challenge and kind of do other things in life, I wanted to make sure that I had a place to go that inspired me for the last chapter of my career, took really good care of my clients, and gave an opportunity for my team that was more than what I could offer them. And Colliers has been really incredible in that. It's just been, I'm super proud of what I did, owning a company and building it, and then being able to sell it to such an organization. I didn't think I'd ever be at Colliers, never thought it would be Colliers.
Right.
Couldn't be more thrilled. The depth of resources, and I even like getting dressed up and going into the office, and I just love it. It's been really a good transition.
Are people coming in anymore?
They are coming in.
That's good.
And I think that, for me, we were virtual for 23 years. And I mean, we got together, we had, shared office space or whatever, but, I worked out of my house, but I was out meeting with people all day long. I'd say I lived in a coat because I was showing space or meeting with clients, and I just bought pretty coats, and half the time I had workout stuff underneath, and people didn't even know. But you
were doing the COVID program before it was COVID.
Yeah, It was cool to be a woman business owner and a remote worker before. Before I made it cool. It was all about me.
Right.
Nothing to do with COVID. But at the end of the day, I really do enjoy talking to people, and it's fun to be out there. And once COVID hit, we were kind of, in our basements, like in front of a computer all day long. It's really fun to be energized, be around really smart people, get that energy, be able to tap into things. You can make some decisions quicker when you're sitting right next to someone, kind of look them in the eyes. So it's fun.
So last question, if you had to pick a certain specialty that you think, it's retail, right, or commercial, that you probably you could probably do anything, but, would that be your area probably?
I've always said I specialize in having a big mouth. And so I feel like it's more about just being able to connect people. And I think I love the fact that I am now part of a company that has really like depth on the bench, where this person's super good at this one thing and this person's that good at one thing. Because I've always been kind of a generalist. Retail, because my first company was a marketing company in retail. I did, people know me as retail. It's also kind of a low-hanging fruit, so it was easier to start out in that. But really, I think the property lines are blurred, and so being part of a big company like you've been with, and being able to understand that now retailers have a distribution arm, and they have office space, and it's a little more blurred. These companies need different kinds of spaces for the different things that they're doing, and so I don't think. I think I'm led more by the relationship, and then now the fact that I get to take this relationship and then tap into the needs of the relationship that I have and find the expertise to help them with the different aspects of their company, I think is kind of a beautiful thing. So beautiful. You have stayed pretty focused, I would say, with a couple caveats, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about Jon.
Okay.
All right. Here we go. Thank you, though, for the questions.
No worries.
Tell me how you got into this business.
Well, I would say it started when I was younger, so much from the standpoint of my mom and dad, and especially my mom. I grew up in a lower middle class family in Eagan, went to Burnsville High School, and we didn't have much money. And when I was 8 years old, I had a paper out, and by the time I was 13, I had $3,500 saved for college because my parents all said, "Hey, if you're going to go to college, you gotta earn it, and you got to do it yourself." So I think the work ethic started back then. I mean, getting involved with different things that I give credit to my mom, who really pushed us all to, get your butt up every morning, when it's 6 a.m. and it's blurry snow and everything else. So that evolved, in high school, being a route salesman at Pepsi. At first I was sweeping floors and everything else, and I saw
in high school.
Yeah, in high school I had a job at summer, and then from high school to college, right?
Sure.
So graduate, and I was making $3.50 an hour, but the guys that were the relief drivers at Pepsi were making $20, $30 an hour, in commissions, and and the only way you could get in was to be like a son or a nephew, because it was pretty select.
Really?
So I in one of the night deals I was mopping, and one of the top guy's kids was there, and he was telling me about it. I think he was over there smoking pot and stuff, and I just said, "How do I get in?" He goes, "Well, you got to call my dad." His name is Kippers, Gene Kippers, and so I think I called him 16 times, and I think the 16th time he said, "Okay, come on in for an interview," and that was the start of, for me, was like, wow, sales. I mean, if I go out and sell, I was selling the Valley Fair and everything else, so I knew I wanted to get into sales. But at the time I also wanted to be an engineer and all these different things. Went game warden because I loved the outdoors, loved to hunt. Went to college. I hated all the computer science classes and all the physics and everything else. So I got out of that, and then eventually, got into sales. Found a marketing job at CB that dealt with a database under Tom Shaver and Phil Jaffe at the time, and so applied for that. Got into that, and that was probably like getting your MBA in commercial real estate, because you had to do all the data work, all the absorption, all the detail, all the sale rates, everything else for the John Allen and Kurt Knopf and Tom Holtz and Terry Kingston and everybody, right? And you either made it or you didn't, right? And so that year and a half was an eye opener. It was very difficult. There's many times I wanted to quit, and I'd come home to my mom, and she said, "You can't quit. I mean, this is you'll be fine." And then so did that for 5 years, and eventually
5 years.
Yeah, well, no, 2 years, a year and a half in the data bank, but 5 years with Jim Leary at the time.
Oh, really?
And then from there moved on to Shillard, and eventually United Properties. So.
Yeah. And Shillard, I think, was a special place.
Yes.
Don't you think?
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
Culper
and the gang, Wade Lau and all the rest of them, Shell Wirt.
Yeah, it was a really special family. Like,
Yes.
I don't know, it was a culture that I've never seen ever since.
Yeah.
And I think you guys, I mean, I got to do a little marketing for them, and, my husband had a little stint in that realm. But, like, it's really cool that you guys are all kind of the guys. I mean, it's a really special fraternity, maybe.
And the fact that they do it every year, Jim Jetlin hosted or puts it together, and they're going up to Grandview again, which is in May to go golfing.
For Park Club.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There'll be about 25 people there, so.
Yeah. It's kind of special. Okay, so you didn't really love CB in the database, but you're still in commercial real estate. So how does that happen?
Well, I mean, you start there. That was an entry position. Then you become a runner, right? So I ran for a guy named Jim Leary, and Tom Shaver was his junior partner at the time. And then you learn from them, and you kind of do whatever you can to grow, and just usurp as much knowledge as you can off that, and also around the individuals around you. Watch guys like John Allen and Kurt Knopf and Don Haupt, and I mean I can name all kinds of guys that were there. And you say, okay, what are the things that they're doing great, and what are the things that if I ever became in their position that I would change, And so at the time, Dennis Panzer was left and went to Shillard and was working with Culp, and he started, luring myself. And then there was a guy, one of my biggest competitors in the Northwest, a guy named Jeff Scherber. And so I said to Jeff, I go, Jeff, if you and I team up, and you work the Northwest, I work the Southwest, we move over to Shillard, we can dominate the West Side. And so, through many days of discussion, we both moved over. And then, we hired, our first hire was Jason Meyer.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Little
awesome.
farm boy. Well, he wasn't a farm boy, but he lived out in the country. And so, that was a great hire. So.
And you focused on industrial.
Yes, 100% industrial. I mean, what they taught you at the time it was called Coldwell Banker, eventually CB, but Coldwell Banker would teach you that you work a geographic area and you isolate in a product type. It's kind of like if you're going to have your knee operated on, and you're on an island, you'd rather have an orthopedic surgeon that's done it 100 times or 1,000 times than a LASIK doctor. The LASIK probably knows more than the common person, but the orthopedic person's going to actually do a finer, if you have the equipment around your job. So the theory is that if you know a geographic area, you know the entire market, you know who's sold or leased, or the different people out there that own property, and you can drive a client around and know that market better than anybody else, and specialize in that, you should be able to make a tremendous living. And that's kind of the idea. Was
it difficult to make the leap to Shillard?
I was somewhat scared, in the beginning. Yeah, I was, because, you're a young punk that's 26, you have all this energy and you think you're going to do it, but now you're going off on your own. I mean, and CB, and still was the dominant player. I mean, they had greater technology than anybody else. They just were, had a larger market share. So it was kind of a new niche, but the minute we went over there, we just kept on producing more and more every year, and it's a blessing from God. I mean, I can't look back and say that it was a mistake. It was a phenomenal deal.
Well, I think you're one of the best business development people in this industry.
Well, you're a nice lady,
and
you must feel sorry for me.
No, I look up to you.
Thank you.
And I've told. I don't even know how I hear it, but I hear, well, Jon Yanta does this, and Jon Yanta did this, and that's how you become successful. One of the things that I remember, and I've told the people that I've coached, is that when you have a listing, that is information, and you can use that information to have conversations with people, because you didn't just sit back and let it come to you. I mean, you went after it.
Yeah.
So how did you go after it? How did you go after and grow this business?
Well, I mean, I remember early on when I was at CB, there was a gal named Maria Mon that sat next to me, and I would just cold call like crazy, because I mean, I didn't come from all kinds of connections or resources. I just said I had to find them. And I tried to cold call on larger deals, because if you're working at 500 square foot industrial deal, it still takes time to do that. You got to go through all the leasing and the process and prospecting and helping the person all the way through the process versus a 50,000 square footer. So I focused on a larger type of transaction, and I would call all day long. And my goal was I figured out early on that for every lead that went to a deal, every time someone said no to me, it's like $50 in my pocket. Because rejection after a while, it's going to drive you nuts. It just, I still don't, I don't enjoy cold calling. I like warm calling, or, a friend tells me about something, but just to pick something up, I can do it very well, but I'm blessed that I had enough practice, but it's not fun, right? And nobody just loves that. Certain people do, but not most people don't.
Right.
And so if I had to figure out a way to motivate myself, and I remember Maria going to me, how can you do this? I go, Maria, you just bought a new car. 6 months ago, if I would called you and said, hey, I have this new, your car you're looking for, you'd talk to me, right? Oh yeah. I go, but now that you bought the car, you have no interest. I go, that's the way the commercial real estate world is at that time, 40 years ago. I go, you have to be, willing to, endure the no's. And because of that, I figured out, if I called 60 people a day, that was basically $3,000 in the future that I'm going to make. Because I knew from my calculations and all the data that I had that is basically right around $50 a call.
Wow.
Or no, So,
that's totally
but
fascinating.
it was based upon larger deals.
Right.
If I was working on, 2,000 square foot deals, it probably wouldn't have, it would have been a lot less. But because I was focusing on like 40,000 square feet or larger, and so.
How did you have the confidence to call on the larger deals?
Well, because the team, I had Jim Leary, who's done a lot of deals like that, Shaver. So and we had a lot of large listings, and so what you could say is, hey, I have this mammoth building that's 200,000 square feet. Our team does, and I know that you're occupy XYZ based upon the data bank work that I did, and I go, if you have any interest or you're downsizing or expanding or you're looking for space. And then, you keep asking questions and go, the guy goes, I'm not really interested. I go, well, do you have a friend or do you know anybody in one of your clubs that's interested? And he goes, well, yeah, why don't you call, Disney wants to kiss me off the phone. call up Reed Christensen. And so then I'd be calling Reed and go, what? Jim called and told you that? I go, yeah. And then, it's just different ways to try to get the guy to talk, because the hardest thing is people want to get you out the phone. And so you kind of come up with different creative ways, to get people to talk to you.
Wow. That's crazy. Well, and then your career kind of morphed because Shillard sold, right? Is that how you moved around, or? Yeah,
Shillard sold back to the giant CB, and I didn't want to go there, just because it was going so well for us. And once you went into the area that was promising, I didn't know if there was just so many competitors back there that you're competing with. So at the time, United Properties started luring people, and Kim Culp was great. So, then Boyd Stouffer. Some people were nervous about Boyd and this and that, but Boyd was, Boyd and the Pohlads were probably one of the best companies I worked for.
Really?
Oh yeah. If they told you to give me a glass of water or a bottle of water or a new diamond ring, they gave it to you. It wasn't some, well, I'm sorry, or, today, there's constant cutting cost and all this, from top down. They were totally for developing the people, training, helping, and supporting you. It was a great company.
You have developed a lot of people.
Thank you.
Both directly and indirectly. Tell me about kind of what your strategies or what your philosophies are about taking care of your team, because you've always had a pretty big team.
Yeah. And I think, I'll use an analogy or a story. Herb Brooks, who coached the Stanley or the NCAA or what? No,
U.S. hockey.
U.S. hockey, yeah.
Yeah, and other things.
Yeah, he made a statement. Someone goes, "Do you always get the best players?" He goes, "Not always." He goes, "I get the best players that work together." Because you can get, and there's some really talented individuals that are strong stallions or I should use the female side. They're just dynamic, right? But they're very difficult to work together. And the hardest part in our business is someone, 3 or 4 people or 5 people getting along and then whose value and how do you share the commissions? Because it's like every year it's like a law firm. We get together as a group of individuals, and everybody starts saying, okay, here's the deals we worked on. This is what I've added value to, blah blah blah. And then this is what I think I earned. And obviously the young people think they earn this much, and the pumpkin heads like me or the older guys that have been around. Well, we owe And so one of the things that I think Jason and I developed early on is that I always try to be as generous as we can with good talent. So let's just say a guy like Brent Masika, who's a phenomenal individual, one of the top in this industry, brought in 15 years ago 10% of the pot. Let's give him 11 or 12%. Just because, we want him to stay. Because if you lose a guy like that, right, you spend all this time training them, giving them all your secrets and all the insight and what you should or shouldn't do, and they go off and start a new team, now you got competition. No matter what anybody says, they're going to take some of your clients away. It's inevitable. So if you treat everybody right, you treat them with respect and work together, I mean, you can, like we are today, we have an 8-person team. I mean, it's huge, and it's but it's great too, because you come in and everybody kind of knows their program, and it's kind of like a little locker room in a way.
Well, you have your own team. I mean, you have your own company within a company, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to call it that,
I mean, really, it's and getting that all kind of figured out, and I mean, it's got to be, and you have to have strong personalities. But
right.
I know I said, I would much rather choose an amazing human over like the top producer in the world to work with. I mean, right. I'd rather take care of people and know that my people are taking care of people versus have a group of people that are only taking care of themselves. And so, because then I know that they're going to work ethically and do the right thing by our customers. And I feel like I had a group of people at my own company that were all good humans first.
Right, and to me too, it's hard working. I would be, that's number one. Moral ethics. If you're really selfish or narcissistic or a self-absorbed person, it's not going to work. Because you're not going to actually look at the client first, and then if you look at the client first and could care less about the commission will come. And the client will be taken care of. But when I can take a couple of different examples. Chris Melcher, when he came in, he was a farm boy, did a bunch of chores. He'd go to pass ball, come back and do chores. And I go, how often you do that? And within about 5 minutes, I go to Jason, I go, we got to hire him. And he goes, well, we don't know. I go, here's the deal. You can't train these guys how to work. You can teach them real estate. And I go, the same with Luke Apper. Luke Apper came in. John Roush was looking for a guy, and I said, John, I know his brother, but this guy here, he was one of the top, batting averages over at the University of Minnesota. I asked Luke a specific question, like, his work ethic. He goes, well, his account, I would go down in the basement every night, and I put a tee out, and I hit the ball off the tee 400 times a day. I go, what? You do that? And I go, are you full of crap? Are you lying to me? I go, I'll get you a job. So I went back to Roush and just pounded on him and said, and they're great partners today. And so the thing is that you find people that have that desire, that drive. I mean, in our team, there's a whole myriad of I'll give you another one. Hudson Brothen. I went to St. Thomas, and so I went and did a speech at St. Thomas, and Hudson was there, and this young kid, he was a junior in college, and he comes up to me and goes, hey, John, Hudson Brothen, here's my card. He had his whole card. He goes, I'd like to come work for you. I go, Hudson, it's 2008. We're not hiring at a Dead Sea. Sorry. Well, I'd like to come with you. I go, you're not listening. We're not hiring anybody. I'll come and do nothing. So he calls a couple of times, and now I'm recognizing this number that comes in, And after like 10 just like I did with Pepsi, 10 or 12 calls, I finally pick up the phone and go, and I said a few words that were not appropriate. I go, what the Blake is your problem? I go, did you not understand? We are not hiring. It is a Dead Sea. I feel like a loser because I can't even bring in business because it's so quiet. He goes, well, I'll tell you what, I'll work for free. I go, what? You said free? He goes, yeah. I go, come in Monday. So he comes in Monday, and he's got the old big baggy jacket and everything else. I go, dump all those stuff. You don't need to wear any of that stuff. Just come in. He worked 2 days a week for like a few months, and Mike almost finally sees him walking around. He goes, Johnny, who is this guy? And I go, it's his name is Hudson Brothen. He goes, did we hire him? I go, well, he's working for free. He goes, you can't do that. But today Hudson's one of our top producers, right?
Oh my
and people
God.
will say, Hudson will say it's because of me. It wasn't. It's because he was persistent, and and his personality is different than mine, and that's the beauty of it all. I mean,
Thank God.
you don't know the drive that's in somebody, right?
Yeah.
And so if you have the drive, and the imagination or the desire, the only person that's going to stop you is yourself.
Emily Massey works for me, and when we met, she said that she got in trouble in 3rd grade because she was super wanted to win the prize for it was like a bike or something for selling the most wrapping paper.
Right.
So she stopped doing all her schoolwork and spent all her time selling wrapping paper to every single family member she knows. And then she got grounded, but she got the bike, I think. So I'm
right.
like, dude, that's the kind of person that's what it takes to do well in this business, right? It's like my favorite story.
Right.
Yeah, that's crazy. Go Hudson.
You get all A's in school, but
Yeah, if you don't play yourself.
Right.
Yeah. So tell me do you have any really fun stories? I mean, you've done so many deals. I mean, you're kind of a legend. Just tell me about a fun deal or something. Are there things that stand out after all these years of doing kind of the same thing?
What do you mean by fun story?
Anything that stands out, like a deal stands out that was super complicated or.
Well, I'm going to give you a complicated one, but there's a company called Seagate. We don't work with them anymore because of the national connection. But early on, a guy named Al Liable, director of real estate, was looking for space. And so I was 23 or 24, just like a newbie, like a year out in my runnership at Leary. But I'd work all the time during lunch. I'd eat lunch at my desk and I'd just, either process or whatever. But, everybody would be going out. Well, he called into the office and I was the only person there. So he called and got a hold of me. And it just so happened that I analyzed a area right in Edina that had a sublease. And so he was looking for 10,000 feet of warehouse space. And he called me and he goes, I'm calling you. And I figured I'm going to call people, whoever's working at lunch is somebody that, I want to work with. And you happen to answer the phone. And then because I knew the market, knew what was going on, it was like a 20-year relationship. I mean,
wow.
He just said, he'd tell people, he goes, because this guy was here at that time, put the effort in, and he knew what was going on. He goes, now I've trusted him, and he's done all my stuff. So, I mean, that was kind of a fun little, I go, wow, because I asked him, I go, why do you keep working with me versus working with, one of the big shots that's been around for John Allen, let's say. He goes, well, because, that was his point. So.
Oh, that's super cool. Well, so you have built a whole baseball team basically at home as well with your beautiful wife, Callie. How and you've raised them in a very successful family. How do you create work ethic for kids? You have 6 kids?
Yes.
How do you create work ethic in kids when you could pay for their college. You could pay for everything that they needed. And, obviously you modeled hard work, but how do you instill that in your kids?
Well, my kids are spoiled. No, they'll look back. I mean, hi Isaac and Augie and Mariana and Colby and Addie and Macrina. I have beautiful children. I have a beautiful wife, and she's. My wife was on Channel 5, and when we got married and had our first baby, Isaac, she said, I'm quitting and I'm staying home. So that was a critical point for us, which is great. Nothing against working moms. I think it's wonderful, but she was able to do that. A lot of people can't. And then because I was able to provide enough income to allow her to do that, we had that luxury. And my wife's the softer one. I'm more the tougher one, and I'm not the perfect dad. If you interviewed my kids, they'd say he can be an a-hole sometimes, and because it just, because of that drive to work hard, and they did have their colleges paid for by their parents, but they still had to have the work ethic,
Yeah.
And so. We're blessed that way. They all are. None of them. Maybe Addie might want to get into real estate. She's a little fireball, but I think they all. They're into music or different dimensions in life. My son Augie's flying and trying to be an entrepreneur, and so we'll see. And Isaac also, and Mariana's still in college, so we'll see what happens.
Well, kudos to you guys. That's pretty fun. It's a fun stage of life, isn't it?
Yes.
And you also, I didn't realize that, were you one of the founders of Timberland Partners?
Right. I can tell you that story.
Yeah, because I knew you were a big investor because you believe strongly in investing in real estate as well. But I didn't realize, please.
So I early on bought a duplex with my brother Tim when I was early on at CB. And at the time we had renters upstairs and renter at, because it was a large, duplex. And I was paying like $200 a month. Out of pocket. So I just said, if I make $100,000 and I pay Uncle Sam and them their portion, and then I, live on a certain amount, I have $25,000 to $40,000 of disposable income to invest. Well, Kim Culp came up with a building, and I was just being persistent. They called me the chicken hawk because I was going, hey, okay, yeah, scratching at them. And he goes, all right, I'll let you in and a few other people into this investment. So I put $25,000 into it. And within 2 years, they sold it, and I got $75,000 back.
That's crazy.
And I said, wow, that's, nothing against commissions, but when I'm my age, 60, I don't want to have to work. I don't want to have to make a deal. I want to be in a position where I can buy some of this real estate that we are working on, and I'm making all kinds of other people millions of dollars. Why can't we try to do it for ourselves? So I don't want to compete against them with my own. If I went out and did industrial, after a few years, I'd probably be banned.
John Allen.
Well, yeah. I'm not gonna say,
I mean, he was very successful in transition brokerage into being just
even
an
like
owner.
Peter Mork, right?
Yeah, of course.
So Peter's done very well.
Very respectful.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so I went to Bob Franzen, who I respected. He was one of the few people in the industry of multifamily at that time, 33 years ago. I said, Bob, I'll find investors. You find the real estate. So we found a 46-unit apartment, and we brought in a few people, mainly family friends. We bought it, and then we just went on from there. And the only probably area that I made a mistake at is Bob went off from Shillard right away, to start Timberland, and I didn't want to, take the risk to leave because it was dynamic at that time. We were doing well, and and I didn't want to do 1 or 2 deals a year and be bored. I mean, we were doing 10s and 30, 40. So, but I've invested in every project for the most part. We're probably with over 100. There's over 100 and some projects. So.
Wow, and they're a great ethical company and have done a really good job for their investors. And, my only regret is I didn't invest with them, years ago.
Right.
But,
I think everybody wants to be in multifamily now. Back then we were the stepchild. It was office or industrial or retail, and multifamily or apartments were, 12 cap wasn't even good enough. We wanted to, be 14 or 15 cap, right?
Wow. Can you imagine getting that now?
Right.
I grew up in multifamily. My dad was all multifamily, and actually Bob worked for my dad back in the day. Yeah. Wow. So, but
what was the maiden name?
Griffin Companies.
Oh, Griffin, yeah.
Larry Francine, yeah. So, hi Dad, hi Mom. She watches on our YouTube channel.
I didn't know that's interesting.
That's my dad, yeah.
Wow, that's how you got into business?
It's how I got the business in my blood.
Right.
So I think it's an industry that gets in your blood, and I learned a lot from my dad and a lot about the business, and did a little stint at Griffin, but for the most part it was really about watching him be successful, working super hard, and understanding that there's something to this real estate thing. So
what was his first name again?
Larry.
Right. And so do you have any other brothers and sisters?
I have 2 younger brothers.
Did they get in?
They are not in real estate either. Yeah.
Okay.
I think my dad and his partner had, Bob Dunbar, had an agreement that family wasn't going to ever be a legacy for their business. And so, my one brother's a pastor and my other brother manages some properties, but, as a high level, high net worth families, and takes care of their properties. So just different aspects, but he was actually a photographer by trade. So
that's cool.
Yeah. So, but it's, but that multifamily gig is, the nice thing about multifamily is that, people always need a place to live, and boy, has that world changed over the last many years. Right. But Timberland has a really respectful name, and I think that's amazing that you were part of the inception of that organization.
Yeah, Dennis Panter, myself, and Bob, and one other individual for a little short time. Keep Dennis Panter in your mind because he's going through the physical stuff. So keep him in your prayers. So.
Yep, I did hear that. So. Yeah. Got to enjoy every day, right?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, we're all getting older and tireder, and if that's a word, but Yeah. Are you a sports fan?
I am a sports fan.
You think the Wild are going to go anywhere?
I have not. It's hard with the Wild because they're not on like regular TV channels anymore, right? So, I'd probably consider myself mostly football.
J.J. McCarthy, you think he's going to do it?
I'm sad that they, traded our quarterback. I feel like we've had a couple of kind of quarterbacks that have, to your point about creating a team, I feel like last year's Vikings team was a team that really worked together well. Might have not been the star of the show from a quarterback standpoint. Fortunately, JD got hurt, so we ended up with what we ended up with. But I think it's all about everybody like feeling like they had a role and making that, and we were close. I mean, we got close, right? So I don't know if they can create. I like the coaching of this organization and the leadership, and that helps a lot. But I don't know. That whole joke of it may not happen in my lifetime where the Vikings actually go to a Super Bowl.
I think this JJ's a winner, though. I think it's been a winner. They say he's won almost 90% of his games in high school, and he's won in college. And I just retired. I coached soccer, high school boys soccer at a small Catholic school called Chesterton. And you do see it in practice. I mean, obviously, when someone comes to a game, that's it's kind of like us in a meeting, right? So, you can work your butt off at the office, but you get in front of a client. Do you stutter, stop? Can you actually think on your feet? Can you actually go in there and create a relationship? Can you move the process, the ball down the court to get to the point where people trust you? And that's the same with, for me, a soccer team, right? So I think these guys see this young buck, and I think they believe in him because they did have Sam Darnold. And then before that, they had Kirk Cousins. So, I think they were right about Kirk. I think they're right about Aaron Rodgers passing on him, and not that we're, we should be talking about commercial real estate, but,
But I think it's all related. I think that, building a team, you create a successful family, you created a successful real estate team, you found a way to create a successful investment team. It's all about bringing the right people together and then treating them well.
Right. And also encouraging in their own way and challenging. I mean, my guys will tell me, I think Hudson will tell you this, Danny McNamara will tell you this, Judd, who's a new guy. There's many times when they were very frustrated with me because I challenged the blank out of them. I'd say, are you calling? I mean, I don't think you're calling enough. And pushing them to the point where today they'll say, hey, you made me better. At the time, they didn't like it, and my kids will say the same thing. In the heat of the battle, like my son right now, he's putting preen down around the house, our house. He might not like the fact that hey, you're doing this or that, and Dad can push too hard. But in the long run, he's creating, some self-worth to where he's at, and so creating getting the people to work together, but also challenging them, in the moments of this is what you're doing right, and this is what you're doing wrong, and I think that's kind of my role now a little bit more, is that I'm just sitting back and watching guys like Brent Masika, Chris Smeltzer, Jason and I are kind of more, not that we're going to retire tomorrow, but we're not running the program anymore. I mean, people think it's Yanta's team. It's not my team. It's those guys. I mean, and the more they grow and I try to pull back, I probably work, 60% of what I did, before. It's still,
probably more than most people still.
I just like doing stuff, I mean, I'm not working like 12 hours a day, but I'm still there,
Well, I think that you've got pretty high expectations for yourself, and you are willing to share those expectations with other people, and that's a blessing to them. Maybe not in the moment, but in the long run, for sure.
Right.
Thanks for sharing your time with me today.
You too. And
really fun to catch up with you.
Good luck at Collier's and your family and your marriage that's coming up with your daughter or your son.
My daughter got married in June, and my son's getting married next year.
Wow.
And I don't know how you keep track of 6 of them. 2 of them is hard enough, but you've done a great job.
Grandbaby's coming for you.
No, not quite yet.
Well, in a few years.
Maybe.
There you go. All right.
Jon, thank you so much.
Thank you, and thank you for doing it.
Thank you, my friend.
Keep it smiling.